Hello Year 4 and welcome to part 2 of today's English session. So before we were talking about these sentences and trying to group them into their different subheadings. Now we thought about the first one, it was all about the climate, wasn't it? So we knew that that would definitely be one of our subheadings. Now let's have a look at another statement now and see how we can really categorize that into a subheading. I'm going to choose this first one here on the second part. So it's mammals include primates and cats. For example, the mustached tamarin and the jaguar. So I can see here, I know that a jaguar is a type of cat, so it's coming from the family of different cats. And I can see here that that is a type of animal. It's definitely not talking about climate. It's definitely talking about a different subject. Oh, talking about the animals. So maybe that could be another one of my subheadings. So maybe I might write a note next to it just to say, oh, this one's about animals, the one before was climate. Now if I keep reading down, it says here as well, reptiles includes snakes and lizards, for example, the boa constrictors and the iguana. Well, is that about the climate? No, it's not talking about the weather, is it? Is it talking about animals? Ah, reptiles, that's a group, that's a type of animal. Snakes and lizard, they are all animals. We know the boa constrictor and the iguana both are home to the Amazon rainforest. So maybe we could write a quick note next to that one as well, saying, oh, that one belongs to the animals. I know this because I know there is actually an animal referenced in this statement. Now, if we go down to this statement here, the emergent layer contains a small number of very large trees that grow above the general canopy. Is this talking about the climate? No, it's not talking about the climate, is it? It's not talking about any type of weather condition or type of, type of weather or precipitation that comes from the clouds. Is it talking about animals? No, it's not talking about animals. So it's not talking about climate. It's not talking about animals. What am I going to do then? I could create another subheading. Now I can see here that the words the emergent layer, where have we heard those before? That's right, we've heard them when we are talking about the 4 different layers of the rainforest. The general canopy. Yes, that's another layer of the rainforest. So perhaps this is talking about the structure of the rainforest. So I can just write a quick note there saying it's about the structure. Now if I move on to a final statement that I'm going to look at today, because I've made my 3 sections now and I'm just going to make sure they all fit in so I can go back and have a look at them all. But I'm just going to go to this bottom one here. The forest floor is the lowest layer and receives only 2% of the sunlight. The word sunlight here, that makes me think it's about climate. Is it? Is this statement about the climate? We've got here the forest floor is the lowest layer. Now that's all about the different structures of the rainforest, but this whole idea it receives only 2% of the sunlight. Is that about the climate or is that about something else? What is receiving only 2% of the sunlight? Yeah, that's right. What's receiving 2% of the sunlight is the forest floor, the layer of the rainforest. So actually, is this talking about the climate? No, it's not, is it? It's talking about, again, the structure of the rainforest. So don't be fools. If something looks like it's talking about 2 things, weigh it up. What's it talking more about? And I know, yes, it has mentioned the sunlight, but actually that isn't a climate. That's more like a weather. But anyway, the main thing it's talking about is the forest floor because it's saying this forest floor doesn't receive a lot of sunlight. So it's all about the forest floor here, the layer. So that's just showing you a bit how I made my conclusions about how I would find out the different subheadings that I might split these sentences into. So as I previously showed you, I have split mine into the climate, the structure and the animals. So you might have done this too, but you wouldn't have done it how I've done it because I haven't given you this resource. You've got a different one to do. But you can see here how I've put them into structure, climate and animals. And you can see in my climate, I'm looking at here, the average rainfall is no less than 168 centimetres. So it's talking about the rainfall. Yes, this is talking about the weather, the climate, definitely. Tropical rainforests have a warm and wet climate. It's in the word there. And then again, it's talking about the average temperature exceeds 18 degrees during all the months. That's a really hot temperature. So it's really hot and humid. We know that about the climate. Here, the structure, we can see here the understory, the emergent layer, different plants and animals. Oh, Is that about the animals? But then we read on, are adapted in life in that particular layer. So it's talking all about the layers. A tropical rainforest usually has a number of layers. You've got here rainforest birds are always brightly coloured, all about the animals. We've already looked at these two as well, the reptiles and the mammals. These are all groups of animals. We know that from looking at our topic all about living things. So we can see here that we've split them into the 3 sections. Now we're going to have a look at how we can spot paragraphs looking at non-fiction text now. And there are some rules that we need to make sure that we follow when we are looking at paragraphs and splitting text into paragraphs, but particularly with non-fiction text. So we're going to see a text which is based on all of the statements that you've looked at so far in today's lesson. And you will see that the text is split into a number of sections. And these sections are all called paragraphs. And when we start a paragraph, we start each paragraph on a new line. This signifies, doesn't it, that it's actually a different subject that we are now going to start writing about. And in each paragraph, you'll see the first line starts a little way in. Now, we don't do this with all text, but for the purpose of today, the first line are always going to start a little way in. And also, each one, as we know, is about a different aspect of a topic. So we can see here, I have no way to move my face because I'm always going to be in the way, maybe actually here. So this is all about the tropical rainforest. It's a non-chronological report. Each paragraph is about a different section of the rainforest. And I want you to read this non-chronological report and think, is it split into the same or different subheadings that we have previously split the sentences in? This is all about the sentences that you've just looked at. Have you correctly grouped them, or did you do it a bit differently? So pause the video, read the text and have a think. Off you go. Okay, so let's have a look at the general layout of this text then. We can see that there are different paragraphs. How many paragraphs is this text split into? That's right, it's split into 4 paragraphs. I wonder if you can identify the subject of each paragraph. You can see here that the first lines are always indented a little bit. Now, I want to stress to you that this is not the case for every single time we start a new paragraph. I will let you know, depending on what text we talk about, which requires an indented first line. But just for the purpose of today, they have been indented. Another thing we need to notice is that they don't have subheadings just yet. Can you think of a subheading that can be written for each of the paragraphs? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, how did you do? Well, we know the first one here is talking about the climate, the average temperature, the average rainfall. And that was all about the climate, wasn't it? So you might have subheadings this as climate. The second one, we know, we can see the word number of layers. They're adapted for life in this particular layer. The emergent layer, the canopy layer, the understory, the forest floor. What's that talking about? The structure, well done. And you've got here, more than half the world's species of plants and animals. Mammals include, reptiles include, rainforest birds. What's that talking about? Is it talking about the trees? No, it's not, is it? It's talking about the types of animals. Well done. So far we've got climate, structure and animals. We've got one here that we haven't actually had a go at this one because I didn't give you this one. I wanted to see if you would be able to put a subheading which is appropriate for this paragraph here. What do you think the subheading would be? Well, let's see what it's about. Well, you can see here, tropical rainforests have suffered heavy amounts of logging. Do you remember what logging was? Well done. Logging was the process of chopping down trees. Do you remember what they used the trees for? That's right, they use them to make timber to use for the world's markets such as furniture and construction and paper. And you can see here if we read on, logging is carried out because the hardwoods that grow in rainforests are so valuable. People also clear trees in the rainforest, are clearing trees, that's the same as logging, so that they can plant the area with crops and graze animals. Another factor causing the loss of rainforest is expanding urban areas. Forests are being destroyed at a rapid pace, and we can read there, we got a statistic there, almost 90% of West Africa's rainforests have been destroyed. So I would say, what is this subheading to this paragraph? That's right, it'd be all about logging, wouldn't it? Now we really need to remember that when we are using paragraphs, we need to remember a few things. What do we need to remember? What have we spoke about so far? Pause the video, have a think. That's right, when we are using non-fiction paragraphs, the text will be split into a number of paragraphs. Each one is about a different topic or aspect of the topic. Each one starts on a new line, and the first line always starts a little way in. So well done if you remembered that. Your task today, you've got some different sentences here. You are going to cut up the sentences if you have access to a printer. Well, you're going to read them first, then you're going to organise them into paragraphs. You can cut them out, you can organise them however you wish. You might want to make a table like I did to show you the climate, the structure, and the animals. If you don't have access to a printer, you can still do your subheadings like I did in my table, in my 2x4 square table, sorry, can't speak. But what you might want to do is just number them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then say you thought this one about buttress roots was all about something in specific. You would then put the number 1 underneath that subheading. And then when you send your work in, you'll just need to make it clear which one it's about. So you might want to just briefly write about buttress roots, but you don't need to write the whole statement out. I'm going to let you take ownership over how you want to lay this out, but you must make sure that you organise them into paragraphs, okay? So you can use the subheadings that I've put on the second page of your resource sheet to help you. This isn't on the screen at the moment, but when you see your resource pack, if you're really struggling with the different subheadings, what you can do is find them in the second page. This is all about the Great Kapok tree, so it's telling you lots and lots of information. So if you weren't aware about the origins of the Great Kapok tree or what it is, then you'll be learning a lot about it in today's lesson, okay? So I'm really excited to see your wonderful learning about that. Now the final task of today is to look at the following pictures and think about which picture is the most important and why you think this. So pause the video now. Which picture do you think is the most important and why? Okay, which one did you think was more important? Can you tell the screen? Okay, so I've got a few of you saying maybe the toucan was the most important because that's an animal and animals are really precious to us. You might have said that buttress roots are really important because what were they used for? That's right, the buttress roots are making sure that the tree didn't fall down if the bark was really, really thin, if the tree was actually really, really thin, the buttress roots have stability for that tree. Now, you might have said deforestation is really important because this picture shows a really this picture has a lot of imagery, isn't it? You've got the trees which have been cut down, you've got the rainforest which is no longer there, so that picture might have been really important. You might have thought the large kapok tree was really important based on your learning from today, or you might have thought the kapok tree pod was really important. But that is up for your own interpretation. I just wanted you to have a bit of a think. So remember your tasks for today, cut up the sentences, organise them into paragraphs, see if you can organise them into paragraphs, and then put them in the correct format as well, so in the correct order. Wonder if you can do that. Have a little play around. You don't need to glue anything down as long as you're trying to navigate them around and maybe just leave them where they are. You don't need to glue them down. Have a lovely rest of your day, Year 4, and I will see you in our next lesson. Goodbye.